Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back to, I guess, technically the first of video game news, in that we are now no longer, I am no longer branding this as Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel in video game news because it is unlikely that I'll play much, if any, Yu-Gi-Oh! Maybe one game, and that is definitely just not the emphasis, and it hasn't been the emphasis for a very long time here. So it does seem like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel is also getting ridiculous amounts of update here. 10 gigabytes sounds like a massive just re-download of everything on Master Duel. Moving to, I guess, maybe a new version of Unity, but even that seems like they are doing it the wrong way. They have to update all of everything. So yeah, there is still some things I'll have to work through here as far as just like, if I open 10 packs here and then I'm barely playing any Yu-Gi-Oh! I will eventually just stop having any packs to open. And then there is a new Yu-Gi-Oh! Tryout duel happening, which, yeah, I'm gonna have to just force myself to really commit to playing less. Otherwise I'm gonna end up playing a lot off screen, which is not going to save me any time, which is not the direction I want to go. So yeah, we can see that there is a tryout duel here. We can see we can just copy from our Zodiac Tri Brigade deck with no limitations whatsoever, and we can hop in. I'm not sure if I said today's date. Today is May 3rd, Friday. For the catch-up warm-up section here, I'm still playing Fallout New Vegas. I am not really seeing it though. First of all, my hope and my thought is that Fallout 4 is just more action-based. There's just more enemies to shoot, where New Vegas is fairly empty. And I don't know if that is because I'm playing it on very easy or what, but if it is a case that I'm playing it on very easy and that is reducing the number of enemies that appear, that's a bad way to balance that, because the enemies are also super easy to play. Why is there a card here? Double summon. Why is there a spell card in the middle? That's not a place to put a card. Is this some new way they're animating things? Like, I have never seen anybody be able to do anything like that. Like, I can't target that spell card. But yeah, I'm just not seeing where the love for New Vegas really comes from. Yes, the encounters feel like they are slightly better written and less just randomly generated, but it seems like there's just a lot less of them. And there still are a lot of encounters that are too simplistic. For instance, there was one where we were supposed to rescue two people, and all you did is just walk into a camp and shoot two people, as far as I could tell. Shoot the guards and rescue the two people. There was no conversation tree. There was no sneaky way to stealth through it, as far as I could tell. There's just no special way to make that encounter unique, other than you don't usually see people captured. So yeah, there still feels like they're just generic encounters like that. There's a lot of content that feels like it is lesser copies of Fallout 3. One thing I suspect that is going on with the fandom and love for New Vegas is that I suspect there is a case where there is less filler in general just because it's a smaller game, and with the less filler, the memory of a player that a player would have of New Vegas may just be better, because it definitely is the case when I think of Fallout 3. I remember that there's just a lot of worse than average quality content, a lot of filler content, a lot of stuff that should have been left on the cutting room floor. And yeah, I think that may be one of the issues to certainly consider there, is that less is sometimes more when making artistic creations, and that is something I think Bethesda in particular refuses to recognize, is that they think procedurally generated more is more, and as such they just want giant games. And with every new game that they release, it is, you get fairly high examples of how that works less and less. There's still a massive amount of garbage that you really can't do too much with. Vendor trash in Fallout New Vegas. There's more vendor trash in New Vegas than there is in Fallout 3, and they try to make it seem like there would be some other systems there with cooking mechanics and such, but all that's doing is just kind of adding a third gameplay mechanic like lockpicking and hacking, which are all elements that really should just go away by modern standards. Like, if you, the proper way to probably play New Vegas in 2024 is to have a mod that eliminates all the vendor trash stuff, gives you infinite carry weight, automatically hacks, automatically lockpicks, and even if you had all of that, you still run into the problem where you would just be walking around looking for that next fight, which is really all I've been doing, is just walking around trying to follow that main story. I probably am not too deep into the main story, and I'm trying to be fairly realistic about taking side quests if I happen to walk past a place, but I'm not really finding that many extra side quests either. So yeah, it's either a case where I'm going to be fairly unimpressed with Fallout New Vegas, or I am just so early in the game that there is going to have to be this recommendation to all players to run through the main story fairly quickly, which is the exact opposite of what I would suggest for Fallout 3, because Fallout 3 changes fairly dramatically after you do the main story, and you couldn't even play the game after the main story had happened in Fallout 3 originally without the DLC. I did run into one DLC section and it just straight up warned me that says they are recommending that I be at level 15. I'm at like level 8, and it's hard to level up and get experience when you're not finding enemies to defeat or even quests to complete, and you get like 100 XP for completing a quest, where you only get 10 or 1 XP for killing certain types of enemies. So yeah, there is also a gun modification feature that... Okay, so this is just how they now are doing this. They've changed the programming, so in a special events duel, a card that cannot be destroyed is going to be played is in the middle. Interesting. But yeah. That's pretty much all I've been doing with my spare free time. This minor emergency is slowly getting better, but it's still not. It's kind of plateaued or valleyed as far as getting better. I'm still having a lot of times where I'm struggling to find an hour or two to record Fallout New Vegas, and my length of episodes is fairly inconsistent here. Some episodes are like an hour, some episodes are like 2 hours. And frankly, I'm just going to kind of go with the flow on that one. But yeah. I'm also getting interrupted in the middle of streaming quite a bit. Which that's still a problem. But yeah. It is a poor situation, to say the least. But if you can't even run a YouTube channel under your own control because you're getting interrupted, you definitely can't be doing anything else. Which I imagine that's what a percentage of people who were working from home realized fairly quickly, is that you have to have a separate office and lock the door and have nobody else around needing your attention. Otherwise, people are going to interrupt you non-stop, and you're just never going to get anywhere. Of course, that's no guarantee that if you're working in a cubicle in an office that you won't also be interrupted. Let's see, do I have anything else to really catch up on before we get into the news? I did actually accomplish something else. I worked on my macros a little bit, and in a brief moment of actual success, I have managed to, see if we can do this, figure out how to speed up the let's go ahead and toss that one too, I guess. I figured out how to speed up the preview thumbnails on Steam pages. There is an extension that's just called like JavaScript for Firefox, and it allows you to inject JavaScript. Now, JavaScript, thankfully, does not have, I think, any real error checking or any real safety things in it that prevents you from redeclaring a function. So I had to spend, I would say, about an hour looking at Steam's JavaScript, which a lot of their JavaScript and most websites work this way, loads JavaScript files as separate files instead of it just being hard-coded into the HTML of every individual page. So I had to just search around, figure out where the function was, and the function had a number in it. That's what I was looking for, is that there would be some kind of time delay number, probably in milliseconds, of the amount of time between switching from one screenshot to the other. So I was able to find that. It was programmed to 5,000 milliseconds, so 5 seconds, and it does have some other programming in it for touchscreens, so if you like swipe or touchscreen, it should stop cycling. I don't know if Steam ever really works perfectly that way, but whatever. And so I just, with the JavaScript injection extension, copy and pasted that same function, thus redefining it, because that JavaScript will be added after the fact. So I'm just redefining the function with a smaller, about 700 milliseconds time. So about a tenth of the time. And it worked. It, with a little struggle, had to experiment a little bit to find the right extension, because there was two that looked almost exactly the same and only one actually seemed to work. But yeah, so a very little work there with almost instantaneous success. These days I am elated and shocked whenever that actually happens. I also worked on my macros to open up GameDeveloper.com articles again, just correcting things. And I thought I had worked on the Gamatsu articles to go ahead and by default open up the Steam links, and I thought I had fixed the follow list. One thing I'm trying with the follow list in particular, even though it didn't work, is to block images on that one page from loading, because the follow list is so incredibly long. The thought process being that I could stop it from loading images so the page would load faster, so it could handle and go through the list faster. And then I tweaked it, or attempted to tweak it, so that it would only have certain follow list games pop up. Although my programming on that is probably wrong. And inherently, if my programming is right, then it might have been the case that the follow list did actually work today, and it just didn't leave any of the 10 games it would have looked at open for me to reconsider, because none of those games would have been considerable. Yeah, my programming on that is definitely wrong because of the way I've oriented the order of operations there. I should have programmed it so it would show me every game that is past a certain date, and I think I programmed it so it would only show me every game that was past a certain date and had other factors. 2 normal summons. Geez, I haven't been using this effect at all. Yeah, and I guess that's pretty much it. So, as I am trying to retrain myself to get to the news faster, we should just jump into the news faster. The Family Gaming Database Twitter did something fairly interesting here in that... Oh, that's not going to work either. Oh, this is dumb. That's not going to work. This is probably not going to work. Yeah, the Family Gaming Database, I'm still following that on Twitter, put out an article of like Xbox games to buy if you sell your Switch, and that sounds like a really poor thing to suggest, frankly, that you should sell a Nintendo Switch for. See, what I need to do here, I've needed to do this a long time ago, is swap that to card position manual so I can put it somewhere else. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't recommend people selling their Nintendo Switch to buy Xbox games. First of all, if you were going to do that, I would say buy PC games in Steam, and either way, it's going to be a small amount of money compared to buying an Xbox hardware, just an Xbox Series S or Series X, or buying a Steam Deck or building a computer. All of those are going to really be poor comparisons. But in general, I just don't think kids... Yeah, there probably are some kids that would say, I haven't played my Switch in a year, go ahead and sell it. But most kids, I think, still are going to have some room for entertainment there. Personally, I probably haven't played my Switch in 6 months, but I knew that even going in, that was going to be the case. None of this is working. I'm gonna straight up just kill my character. All that, just so I can activate this. So I can do that. I've been trying so many different ways to kill the guy. Okay, so Video Games Chronicle, which by the way, they are at their 5-year anniversary. I would have thought they would have been around a little bit longer, and frankly, it's kind of hard to say if any website's 5-year anniversary means much because so many of the people move around. It is very possible that some video game journalist at Video Games Chronicle has worked at something like PC Gamer or some other website for 5 more years, 10 more years. Yeah. And even at their 5-year anniversary, I'm still not super impressed with Video Games Chronicle. But yeah. According to Paramount Plus, Knuckles was the most viewed opening weekend in any Paramount Plus original series to date, which isn't super surprising, frankly. Paramount Plus has a lot of old stuff, but they barely have anything new, like Bar Rescue, Yellowstone. I think that's pretty much it. I don't think Paramount Plus is the one with the Star Trek stuff. I think that is Peacock. And really, you barely are having a conversation as far as streaming services between Netflix, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, and Disney Plus. Hulu is dying, effectively, and doesn't really have any original content worth mentioning, and none of the other services really have original content worth mentioning, or they'll have one thing worth mentioning at most. The next story here, Nintendo has taken down more than 8,500 clones of the Switch emulator Yuzu with a single DMCA notice. The notice was filed at GitHub this week and it wiped out a large number of Switch emulators. I have to assume this is 8,500 people who simply forked Yuzu, and thus Nintendo could say anybody who had forked this project is also infringing on the copyright, which GitHub seems to be perhaps too willing to take down all of it. Really, I could see GitHub being within somewhat of their rights to say that that only if the fork included a specific file, but I think if you fork a GitHub, you take that specific file anyway, so there may not be a way that you could make a fork of Yuzu and exclude the one file that Nintendo really may have a claim to owning, although I'm sure Nintendo is claiming they own all of the Yuzu emulator, every single letter in every single line of code. But yeah, suffice it to say, if you are going to make a copy of a GitHub project and in this unique situation where Nintendo is taking it down, you don't you shouldn't fork it. You should download it and probably just keep a copy for yourself. But if you were going to otherwise do it, you would download it and then you would make a new project and upload the files separately, so it is not automatically connected as a fork of the branches of that project of Yuzu. But yeah, these are all forks, and that just really highlights how people in that unique situation don't know how to avoid what was the obvious there. Of course, it is also way more difficult for people to find your fork of Yuzu if you don't actually use the fork system. But that's probably the better. And the basic thing here too is GitHub is obviously just not the place to put up emulators, and GitHub is not the only place where you can use the Git versioning software. It is the biggest place, but it is also owned, I think, by Microsoft. So if you are going to go into the deep web, dark web, whichever one, that would be the place to have a website to have open source sharing of emulators, and then nobody would know about it. And open source would be kind of pointless. Almost certainly, I would guess all 8,500 of these clones, I would imagine less than 100 of those were from people who really had the skill, talent, or even ambition to continue development on Yuzu. So, yeah. In general, I just don't think you would put an emulator on GitHub at this point. GitHub, the way the law is written, GitHub really has a lot of room to say we can't do anything about it. In the same way Nintendo, YouTube says they can't do anything about DMCA claims. And we've seen really no success or progress in fighting that as far as YouTube. And we've seen no success in fighting it as far as Nintendo. And I definitely have the feeling that Nintendo considers emulation to be illegal. One, based on their interpretation of Japanese law and applying it to United States DMCA law. But two, they consider it to be illegal even if you owned a copy of a game and then used a ripper to rip the ROM directly from your copy of the game to then emulate it. So like in the scenario of if you owned a Nintendo Switch game and then you ripped it yourself and then you ran an emulator on your Steam Deck, I think Nintendo still considers that theft from them, because they're expecting you to buy and use up Nintendo Switches and Joy-Cons and break things and have to buy replacements. That they definitely have that closed system mentality where they're not considering you as an honest dealing consumer unless you're buying everything from them. And that's definitely, I think, what Nintendo would love, is that there would be straight up laws saying you have to buy Nintendo Switches, period. No extra at all. That you would just legally be required to buy all their products, and you would legally be required to use their products exactly how they say and no other way. But yeah. And it's still kind of crazy how Konami has finally, like, people have realized how terrible Konami is, and yet still there's so many people that have nostalgia for the Nintendo of old, or Nintendo when they were younger and didn't know about how awful Nintendo was. But like, there really isn't much difference between Nintendo and Konami, or pretty much all the Japanese companies. They are all looking to extract as much money from you as possible, and then treat you pretty poorly. Nintendo in particular is a great example of that. And we'll have a story here that highlights an interesting twist on that thought when we get to it. Meanwhile, Minecraft, I guess it's been around for 15 years, is I think what that says. They are celebrating Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Island Heritage Month, which, okay, apparently that's a thing. And they're journeying to Nagao Motu, which I assume is a thing, an island, and so it seems like they've had somebody make a download of those islands to, and I guess this is Minecraft education mode in particular. But yeah, Minecraft also put out a video here that's worth mentioning, where it is just extremely weird. Like, it seems to me the move here, when you look at this commercial, is that you have Minecraft being advertised to adults, or at least older teenagers. You're not seeing any younger kids, who are mostly the ones who would be playing Minecraft and who you would try to advertise Minecraft to. And it's all live action. It's all very strange. It's all kind of inside knowledge that you would have to already understand or know. And so I would assume this is a case very much where some advertising company was given a list of things. I don't think you can actually marry people in Minecraft. And see, here you have like the youngest kid, one young kid at the very end. So yeah, it definitely feels like this was just an advertisement firm given some sales points and had no idea what Minecraft is and doing a very weird thing. Now, in fairness, I've also seen similar advertisements for Lego, and perhaps that exact same shape your world. So it may very well be that Minecraft is straight up just stealing the advertisement thoughts from the Lego. 15 new paintings are being added for 15 years of Minecraft, which that's probably the more interesting thing to actual fans of Minecraft. You know, I would definitely imagine that the kids who played Minecraft 15 years ago may go back and play it every now and then, but frankly, if you were 6 years old when you first played Minecraft 15 years ago, you'd be 21 years old now. You'd be playing Minecraft with your kids, probably. And yeah, I don't think targeting adults makes sense. I think Minecraft is definitely a kids game, and kids games just have to renew themselves and get new generations of people playing over and over again, kids playing over and over again. The Pinball M, which is the spin-off of pinball games that are rated M for mature, has its next DLC table being Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There is an actual Texas Chainsaw Massacre real-world pinball, and the trick that they were doing there was I think there's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre pinball. What they would do is they would relabel the pinball machines and redecorate them. So they'd make a kid-friendly version that wasn't themed around Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It would be something around Looney Tunes. And then they would have a more mature version where it would be the exact same layout. It's just that the art and the programming would be different. Which in the abstract sounds like a great idea for real-world pinball. In practicality, it suffers a little bit because the programming is usually something that they're always pretty bad at in making real-world pinball. The artwork and the decorations is easy enough to change. It is very weird to have digital pinball games that they felt the need to move over to a separate game just because it has horror and gory and bloody elements to it. It does seem very weird. We talked about this in the last stream. Streamlabs has released a plugin for OBS, meaning streamers no longer need to choose between them. Both streaming companies have joined forces to provide both the best worlds. I suspect this subheadline is wrong. I suspect OBS has in no way really joined forces with Streamlabs, because Streamlabs is a for-profit company and OBS, I believe, is a not-for-profit company. And OBS is just open so that you can add a plugin and make a plugin if you want. And inherently, this has been the fight in the past, is that Streamlabs has made it seem like they were more affiliated with OBS than they really were. Remember, Streamlabs used to be called Streamlabs OBS, and then they had to finally nearly threaten a lawsuit to get them to just call it Streamlabs and stop using OBS in their advertisements. And while there are some interesting looking plugins in Streamlabs, I'm not still sure if you don't have to sign in to some kind of account, some Streamlabs. Yeah, while the Streamlabs plugin is free, users will have to subscribe to the Streamlabs Ultra subscription for advanced features such as premium overlays, multi-stream, which lets streamers broadcast to multiple platforms at the same time, Twitch and YouTube. And you can do that in OBS. It's difficult, but you can definitely do it without Streamlabs. In fact, you can almost certainly do everything that Streamlabs offers, I imagine, without the Streamlabs plugin. It would just take more custom work and more effort, which, in all honesty, that's probably what content creators need to be forced to do. There probably isn't a huge benefit to allow lazy content creators use something like Streamlabs to make their streams look a lot better than really they should. And when you look at Twitch, when you look at YouTube, and maybe I'm not excluding myself in this part, you see a lot of content in a lot of streams that are just incredibly low effort because all of the hard work is being done by other people's software. And certainly as a video game critic, there's a major part of that too. If I was trying to be any other kind of content creator, it would be incredibly more difficult. I'd have to get cameras, I'd have to have sets and backdrops, I would have to do all kinds of editing, and it still probably wouldn't look that good. I am heavily relying on video games. Even when streaming right now and talking about news, I'm heavily relying on the background audio looping from Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. And I'm also heavily relying on modified versions of news articles. Next story, Tetris is partnering with 7-Eleven to release a handheld. Here you can see it's a tiny little Tetris game in the form factor of looking like a Slurpee. These are the kind of things that would have been really cool or really amazing 20-30 years ago. By modern standards, this is mostly just trash. Like things that would be thrown away very quickly. A single game device is not going to be, is not something that should even be allowed to be made. I don't know how you'd make the law, but there really is room to say that there needs to be a reduction in plastic use, reduction in trash law. Something that says if you are making a product, it has to maybe go through a panel of, is this some kind of terrible advertisement thing that's going to end up being thrown away in 5 years, or does this add some extra value? And how would you add extra value to this? Almost certainly, if this can be hacked, people will hack it to have more NES style games emulated, which is almost certainly what this is that this is just a Famiclone from China that has been repackaged inside of a Slurpee cheaply. But yeah, 10-20 years ago, something like this as a thing would be such a amazing thing compared to like a Game Boy, even just because it would be in color, that you would probably be asked to pay a premium. Whereas nowadays, something like this is probably going to be $5 to $20 and not worth it even at that. The form factor looks awful. The buttons look very cheap. And nobody's going to play Tetris in this form factor that much, because people who are playing Tetris these days should either be doing it on their cell phones or on official hardware to go for world records, if that's what they're going for. Same is kind of true for clothing. At least, at the very least, clothing has some utilitarian use. But if we were going to do a reduction in trash type law, there is an argument to say all clothing must be brand free and wording free, and that solid colors that would last and stay in style for a lot longer. But yeah, certainly a gimmick. I'm not sure why 7-Eleven in particular goes for these kinds of gimmicks. Anyways, it is effectively just a gas station, so they should just be making enough profit on gas station elements. It's a little surprising that they even give away free Slurpees on the 7th month and the 11th day. But that's also fairly cheap. Yeah. And if we were going to talk about this isn't super video game related, but if we were going to talk about the reduction in trash and the reduction in plastic, that there is an approach here that needs to probably happen where they start using more paper cups instead of plastic cups. Things that break down a lot more. Plastic cups in drive-thrus and plastic straws and all of that is severely overused. Now, it is still worth pointing out that even if every single plastic cup and plastic straw disappeared tomorrow, that's still not going to make up for the fact that it's corporations that are polluting and dropping trash into the ocean way more than any individual person would. But yeah, there's a level of efficiency that can happen there where you don't need plastic being used as much as it is. Moving on, Sony, according to Video Games Chronicle, is pulling Horizon Zero Dawn from PlayStation Plus games catalog. It's been claimed the company is working on a PS5 remaster of the game. I almost wonder if the Zero Dawn Complete Edition might be getting pulled down because they don't want to use the phrase complete. Complete Edition is probably a risky term. But yeah, if the speculation is true here that they're working on a remaster of the game, that only goes to highlight still that Sony is doing a fairly poor job of having new games, with the exception of Stellar Blade. One of the YouTubers I follow, who is very much a fan of the anime style of lewd imagery, has returned Stellar Blade for a refund and is not going to cover it. So yeah, there definitely are people out there who it was a bridge too far to pre-order Stellar Blade and be told that there would be no censorship worldwide and that every copy of the game was not going to be censored. I don't know why there was really any reason for anybody to believe that with Sony's history. If anything, this is Sony drawing a line in the sand and saying, yes, we are going to censor things and we're proud of it. But it would have frankly been more honest if Sony had just said that instead of allowing Shift Up to say that it wasn't going to be censored. But yeah, very quickly it came out that blood and gore were censored, that outfits were censored. Now, on the accidental racism of graffiti with a graffiti that says hard next to a sign that has the letter R, I can see that being an honest mistake, and I could see saying, oh, we did not intend it that way, so that wasn't really our artistic intent, so we'll change it. Although inherently, if Vincent van Gogh accidentally painted something, a black line into a painting, and then released it to the public, and the public saw a black streak over a painting that was just an accident, that's the released form of it, and it shouldn't be changed at that point. But yeah, Stellar Blade has been, at this point, mired in more controversy than it really needed. Meanwhile, it is also failing under some deafening silence from Western mainstream video game critics, not really singing its praises anywhere as much as they would any other Western game. Like there's been very little talk about Stellar Blade. And there definitely should have been more of it. Although noticeably, the user reviews are still very high of Stellar Blade, and the sales, I think, are going to be surprisingly high. But that is a problem, is that mainstream Western journalism can very easily just ignore and not report on something for a very long time. We more than likely will be talking about how Stellar Blade gets robbed in award shows as we approach the end of the year and Game of the Year discussions. Let's see. A Video Games Chronicle says a research firm has revealed the top grossing PC and console games of Q1 of 2024. This will be interesting. Well, they put it in a terrible system. Alright, so they're saying Fortnite, EA Sports Football Club 2024, Helldivers 2, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2/3/Warzone, well that's basically 3 games combined, NBA 2K24, Madden NFL, Dragon's Dogma 2, Palworld, Valorant, and Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege. Now, inherently, this game, and this game are heavily microtransaction based. So, cumulative revenue there may be through the microtransactions. And that concept only works for the top 1% of games. For every other game that tries to follow that microtransaction model, they don't get a big enough player base and they don't make any money. And then in that, you also have to point out that of the games that have good, interesting narrative or some other good gameplay that would make me recommend the game, Helldivers 2, maybe. Dragon's Dogma 2, maybe Valorant. There's only 3 games I can really recommend here. I can't really recommend Palworld in its current state, and I definitely am not going to wouldn't recommend any of the Call of Duties and sports games. And then I really can't recommend Fortnite either. Yeah. Then the charts are slightly different if they only talk about games that were actually released in 2024. But I would also have to question if their information is right as far as Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League. If this is correct, if their estimates here are correct, that just highlights how few good games have been released. That, like, Persona 3 Reload is taking number 5, and then Tekken 8 is for some reason below Suicide Squad, and Final Fantasy is below that, and Skull Bones is below that. Yeah. Looking at those two pictures, that really just highlights how poor the first quarter of 2024 has been, and 2023 wasn't great either. And I imagine that information is going to be somewhat different even a month from now as Stellar Blade estimate numbers come in. Naughty Dog here is asking for Uncharted photo mode shots, cosplays, tattoos, fan arts, and such, which you're not going to get too much because Nathan Drake from Uncharted is a male, and there's just not that many male cosplayers out there. But yeah, looks like Naughty Dog maybe is trying to make some internal arguments to make a new Uncharted game, which they should be greenlit to make an Uncharted game. They can't just continuously make Last of Us remakes forever. But yeah, that would have to be my assumption. Otherwise they wouldn't have posted anything. Like May 1st. They also announced some kind of Webby Award, so they're apparently doing some kind of podcast. And I guess this is a continuation of them just trying to promote things. Yeah, when you see these companies just constantly trying to promote their old games, it makes me wonder if they have any new games in development at all. There's been a massive amount of layoffs, so we'll probably go through these news stories fairly quickly today. But Paladin Studios is laying off 45 workers and shutting down. This is the Dutch co-development studio working on titles including Cut the Rope Remastered, My Tamagotchi Forever, and Amazing Katamari Damacy. I assume somebody else still is working on Cut the Rope and Katamari Damacy games. Tamagotchi Forever. It may even be worked by somebody else. The Professor Layton Studio CEO says he wants to make erotic and 18 plus violent games. The quote, sub-quote here is, "I think I will definitely end up doing so," says the level 5 boss. This is being translated from Japanese, but I saw a quote here. Yeah, here's the quote. "There's an quote abnormal world inside me," explains, "but I'm not good at trying to go there, and I'm making things from the righteous part of my mind instead. However, deep down I really want to visit this abnormal world." And yeah, that sounds creepy when translated to English, but there is probably a way to localize that phrase where it makes more sense. And yeah, I can see why he would want to do that. Like, I assume that's true for almost all creators. There's very few people, I imagine, that are just 100% childlike in their mentality and the way they create art. Almost every artist eventually goes into the erotic or the bizarre, macabre, the horrific, the bloody, the violent. Those are aspects of human personality that exist in everyone, and aspects of human personality that artists should engage with and express. But so often when you combine capitalism with creativity, capitalism says, well, you made a kids game like Professor Layton that was successful, you're now on this fast track where you have to just continuously make kids games, and you are now known as the kids game creator. And certainly it works the other way too. There have been some erotic artists that became famous for being erotic artists and then wanted to make a more family friendly type art or game, and there's been some pushback on that transition because people want to pigeonhole people mentally, and they don't want to admit that people could just change or do something different. I would imagine saying this out loud probably also highlights that level 5 is looking for work and they don't want to be pigeonholed into just making kids games. But also, this is an interesting highlight in that the boss of level 5, founder and CEO, is also a creative driving element there. So he's not saying that I think our company would do really well if we went into the 18 plus realm. He's saying that I personally think I someday will go into the 18 plus realm. And how this is said in Japanese certainly plays a role too. He could be joking, frankly, when he's saying it and not really mean any of it. Or he could be making an open invitation. When you look at Ni no Kuni, and when you look at Professor Layton art styles, I don't think those art styles would transfer over particularly well, so they'd have to kind of establish a whole new art style. And there is perhaps a bit of a red flag in that Ni no Kuni 1 heavily implied that Studio Ghibli was more involved in the Studio Ghibli animations style, was going to be more of a thing than it really was. So I'm not sure I 100% trust level 5. Although, I guess they've done the whole Professor Layton's stuff. Pokemon Lazy Summer merch collection has been designed by a veteran artist. That it's been announced. James Turner has designed dozens of Pokemon. Hmm. So I assume this has t-shirts and more in the US, Canada, and UK. Yeah. The internet certainly has changed the idea of merchandise and t-shirts and hats, and like those are things that did exist back in the day before the internet, but you would see it and then really that if you saw it on the shelf for sale somewhere, that probably would have been your only opportunity to ever buy it. Now with things on the internet, people can make a lot larger runs, sell to a lot more people, and that has only encouraged merch, when t-shirts and merch are fairly useless items after a certain age. It is very much having kids define their personality by wearing t-shirts. Adults, even kids of this age, should not be wearing t-shirts, because you're just highly unlikely that you're going to be able, even if you're working at like McDonald's flipping burgers, it's highly unlikely you're going to be able to wear t-shirts of your own choosing. In that case, you should be starting kids off and just having them always expect to wear shirts that are just bland, boring, uninteresting things, non-distracting things. Noticeably, the merchandise that they're selling here is not bikinis, it's not swim trunks, so there is a disconnect somewhat as far as summer wear and beach wear. And yeah, I imagine the Pokemon Company does not want Pokeballs on a bikini highlighting breasts, or Pokemon on swim trunks, or bikini bottoms. Let's see, is there even a link here where we could see all of it? Yeah, Video Games Chronicle doesn't even have a link to see the entire lineup. I assume if I click US here, it's just going to bring me to a tag of US. No? Okay. Let's see what they've got here. You have like a one-piece swimsuit, which is probably appropriate for the age of Pokemon fans. You have a beach ball, beach towel. Fairly sheer swim trunks here that they're wearing, but I don't think that those are actually part of the advertisement. Again, I would argue that perhaps merchandise should be limited as to what kind of merchandise can be made, because a lot of this is stuff that will end up getting thrown away fairly quickly. Of course, if you're going to start cracking down on things, Pokemon cards made out of cardboard would be something that would get destroyed or end up in a landfill. But yeah, there's also a freedom of expression element to that, where if somebody did try in the United States to make it illegal to make merchandise that is just going to end up in the garbage, you don't need to look at all of this, but we'll do it anyways, I guess. We'll look at the first page. Yeah, that there is perhaps a way to prevent clothes from being made out of like polyester, and instead being made out of like hemp, and then it would probably break down quicker. Let's see, this isn't really big news. A RKGK or Rakugaki is launching May 22nd. I'm not sure why I had this open. I probably was working on my macro to get these links to Steam to open. The IGDA is targeting people who have been laid off, and so they have released where was it? Here. Layoff support resources. So where you can submit your own, access over 130 resources, community driven, aimed to aid those who've been laid off. There's a whole website for that, apparently. And then they have a bundle that's being sold on itch.io for trans right they're retweeting. And then they have something else they're retweeting. And lots of other retweeting things. It is questionable whether your average gamer would want every single person who's been laid off to stay in the game industry. You can't really deny that there is a lot of dislike of game developers out there, and there's a lot of dislike of bad games out there, and we have to assume that bad games are being made by some of the game developers that are getting laid off, and usually it's not easy to make that comparison and say this is a bad game company that's made garbage games for years. The people being laid off deserve to just not stay in the industry and should just move on to a different industry. It's usually hard to make that cruel statement, but there definitely are some examples of companies where that is the case. Although, weirdly, it's more often the case that a game is somewhat well received and still the people get laid off, and those are the people you kind of wish would stay in the industry. Head Up Games here has announced a new game in the Coma series. This would be, and they're having a Coma franchise sale. Not sure what the new game is. The Coma series being a horror game, we really haven't seen a lot of it. So you have like the Coma Recut, the Coma 2 Vicious Sisters, some DLC for Coma 2 Vicious Sisters, Back to School bundle. So if they did just announce a game, I would assume it's the Coma 3. No, the Coma 2B Catacomb, I guess, is the newest one. This horror series has gained some level of success. Yeah, I haven't played a horror game in a while, so that there is an argument to trying some of those. The former Zynga COO Matthew Broomberg is the next CEO of Unity. The chief executive will net an annual base salary of $850,000, which is way more money than anybody should be legally allowed to be paid as a base salary, just leaving it at base salaries. A litany of stock awards and sign-on bonuses worth $2 million. Notably, I don't think much is going to change here as far as the Unity runtime fee debacle. Yes, you've gotten rid of John Riccatello stepping down, but I don't think the plans are really going to change much. And I believe Matthew Bromberg, running CEO Zynga, doesn't make me have any real confidence that he's going to do much different as the CEO of Unity. Let's see. THQ Nordic's 4th annual digital showcase is coming in August. It's going to be featuring Gothic 1 Remake, Titan Quest 2, and much more. So that's basically an announcement for an announcement. So, Video Games Chronicle has some video offering the first good look at the Super Nintendo world at the Universal Epic Universe. This would be the one in the United States, not the one in Japan. This does look like this is more of a focused video. That being said, I think most of this footage we'd already kind of seen. This is a lot of cutting away. One thing that this does highlight, though, like I suspect all of this is probably they sent a bunch of Western people to the one in Japan to do all this filming. That would be my guess. That's what is going on. The problem with this, mostly though, is by the time this gets open and reasonable that you could actually pay for tickets and go to it, your kids are probably going to be too old for it. Like, if you've got a 6-year-old right now who is all into Nintendo and Mario, will he be into it when he's 8 or 10 or even 12? Because unless they move really, really fast and launch, and then there just isn't that high of demand so you can get tickets at a somewhat reasonable price, like, I would expect that there is probably going to be 2 or 3 years in which you should wait, and that's a lifetime for most kids. One of the problems I would also say that you have with these amusement parks in general is that they are designed in such a way that you are outside in unair conditioned environments, standing around for a very long time. It just is not very conducive to a pleasant experience, particularly in the summertime when kids wouldn't have off, or even in the winter time when kids might have off, but then it would be too cold. Ideally, if I was going to make an amusement park and try to make a pleasant experience, I would probably want to make 4 copies of the exact same thing, all in some kind of giant casino-like buildings with full air conditioning, with lots of places to sit down, very little lines. And even at that, I'm still not sure what you can do to make anything that fun or interesting. You have here, what they're showing off is some roller coasters that are designed for little kids. You've got Mario and Luigi and mascot characters, and then you've got statues to look at and design to look at, and then run around punching blocks and spinning things. Inherently, it's like going to a kids museum, an interactive museum, where that can be fun for a few hours, but to get your money's worth for these big amusement parks, they have to keep your attention for a lot longer. So yeah, skimming over that video, I basically saw everything I was expecting to see and wasn't particularly impressed. It is going to open in the summer of 2025. And if you're a parent, I would suggest just don't tell anybody, because that might be delayed. Don't tell your kids about it, and then surprise them if you're actually going to take them and go. And the problem of the locations being too big is only exacerbated at the Universal Epic Universe that has 4 other locations that they're suggesting you visit at Universal Studios. Here we have another layoff from GameDeveloper.com. This time there's a report that Take-Two is shutting down the Ollie Ollie World developer Roll 7. We probably already talked about that. The ESRB has rated the Nintendo World Championships NES Edition for Switch. There is a hint here, though, that this is not the World Championships cartridge, which I'm not sure Nintendo even has a copy of the 4 remaining cartridges, of the ROMs of the 4 remaining cartridges of the World Championships. So, yeah, I think they're going to use the World Championships label here to make something whole cloth new. Otherwise, it would just be emulating the World Championship cartridges, which the World Championship cartridges themselves were just botched together cartridges showing small sections of other video games. Yeah. And this is probably a great example of why copyright is somewhat broken, in that the World Championship ROMs are literally either illegally acquired online due to copyright laws, or not available to all but 4 people that own the actual 4 copies of the World Championship cartridges. And for society, for something that was a big deal, that was highlighted in the movie The Wizard, that's the big championship they do, that's just not benefiting society. Nintendo shouldn't have an exclusive copyright on something that they have not re-released or sold for decades. The World Championship cartridges definitely have enough importance to society that they should be in the public domain. Now, they frankly should have been in the public domain 20 years ago. But no, that's not how it's gone down. IGDA also did a developer satisfaction survey highlighting diversity, equity, and inclusion deficiencies and crediting confusion. I'm more interested, frankly, in crediting confusion than the fact that people in the game industry are confused about DEI or being deficient. Inherently, game developers are not game managers, and so they're not the people who would be hiring and firing. So their influence on DEI is extremely minimal. It definitely is coming off to me that IGDA is more political than I thought they were or should be, too. Like, for the International Game Developers Alliance, they seem to weirdly not talk about unionization that much, nor do they really talk about game development that much. And I guess I'll just leave it at that. Xbox and Switch players get free Star Wars game trials. Players can try Jedi Survivor on Xbox and Knights of the Old Republic on Switch. This is for the May the 4th Star Wars Day, which would be tomorrow. Although it's kind of pointless to even play a free trial for just one day. From Software has ruled out any more Elden Ring DLC, but has left the door open for a sequel. Shadow of the Erd Tree will be the game's only expansion. I think they said that months ago, though, so I don't think that's really new news. Yeah. Here, Video Games Chronicle says it appears to be a new game based on the 1990 competition, and not just a ROM. According to the description, it's a collection of 2D challenges and platform games in which players traverse various modes, e.g. speedrun, survival. So it might still just be the same games with new modes. They might have actually put some actual programming into it instead of just emulating. but who knows. We'll see if it even comes out. Video Games Chronicle also says that Resident Evil 9 could be released in January, it's been claimed. The game will have the biggest budget in the series history, according to an insider. There is definitely a danger there of Resident Evil just getting too expensive as a series. They've been doing fairly well with Resident Evil 9. They are in a bit of a quagmire as far as whether they want to remaster any of these side Resident Evil games or whether they want to try and remaster or just completely remake Resident Evil 5. I think there is definitely an argument to just try and completely remake Resident Evil 5 and 6 and then better connect it to Resident Evil 7. But then they may also just start remaking and remastering Resident Evil 1 again, which they didn't fully remake Resident Evil 1 on the newest software and technology, so it doesn't quite match the remake of Resident Evil 2. Moving on, Video Games Chronicle says the vast majority of Private Division staff has been reportedly been laid off by Take-Two. Take-Two seems to be reporting while laying off quite a few people. Roll 7 and Intercept Games also. Private Division is a company's name who I recognize, but not sure what they really worked on. Intercept Games was the company working on Kerbal Space Program 2, but them being laid off actually doesn't feel as bad to me because Kerbal Space Program 2 is not really a great game or a better game than Kerbal Space Program 1 from what I can tell, having not actually played it. And it seems like all the programmers who worked on Kerbal Space Program 1 were laid off almost years ago, so there was never really a lot of hope that Kerbal Space Program 2 would be great. It should have been great, but it didn't happen. But yeah, the massacre continues as far as all the layoffs go. Pokemon Go co-developer Very Very Spaceship, which is a company I've never heard of, is also laid off staff. Yeah, I've never even heard of that being a co-developer of Pokemon Go. I don't know if Pokemon Go is even particularly popular these days. Take-Two has confirmed Kerbal Space Program 2 is safe despite Seattle layoffs. And I don't know what they mean by safe, considering the game is still in a pretty poor place. Let's see. Video Games Chronicle says less than half of developers say their studio has a credits policy. A new survey says, and only around 70% said they were confident they'd be credited in the current game, which is to say 30% of the employees are not confident that they would be credited in the work. Now, I definitely am pushing the thought that there should be some law passed. Like, it's always easy, there should be a law, but there really should be a National Labor Board law that says anyone who works in certain industries, like the video game industry, must report all their employees' names to at least the National Labor Review Board and credit them in any credits for video games or any artistic creation. There should be at least the ability for employees to sue their former employee or their current employee if they're not credited. That should be something that could be done. But yeah, credits are a big problem. There still is a lot of room for somebody to make an IMDb for video game developers, so we can get down to knowing the actual name of people when they get laid off, when they make a game, whether they did a good job making the game or not. We'll still have to guess, but not getting credited is just completely unacceptable, and there's just like no argument on the other side at all. it is done exclusively out of laziness and evilness that people are not credited. That there's just no other way to describe it when a publisher or developer chooses not to credit somebody. Well, is this page gonna load? Twitter not getting better. This is probably, I had Video Games Chronicle here because they were talking about their 5-year anniversary. Yeah, on May 2nd, Video Games Chronicle was 5 years old. They want to say thank you. Gamatsu retweeted, commented on that and said, "You're doing a great job," or something like that. I would argue Video Games Chronicle is doing slightly good job. In fairness, I am still keeping them as a news source, but like they are not doing as good of a job as I would like being video game journalists, in that they often get things wrong, in my opinion, or factually can be proven to get things wrong. GameDeveloper.com says the Clockmaker developer Belka Games has cut 20% of its staff. Roblox developers say that socialization is what makes the creator-led sandbox tick, which socialization could also be replaced with the phrase peer pressure is what's making the creator-led sandbox tick. That's probably an unfair thing. I would also maybe argue that maybe the sandbox does not tick. I also would argue that maybe the creator-led concept is very much ticking around hope, false hope of being able to be successful or profitable. Yeah. Although in fairness, kids don't have a lot of opportunity to make money. They really just do not have any opportunity like that, and that's probably a good thing, because if kids did have opportunities to make money more, they would just be exploited more. There's, child labor should be illegal, although perhaps I would argue then children should be taken care of as far as free meals, free housing, free clothing. They use phrases like children are the future, and then there is very little done to ensure children could be the future of a society. Bloomberg says Take-Two Interactive Software is shutting down Roll 7 and Intercept Games. This is from Gamatsu. I think we've seen this from every news source, so we can pretty well assume that's true. It is nice, though, that Gamatsu here is crediting Bloomberg if they are just going to repeat a report from someone else right in the headline. Unity, we already talked about this, appointed the former EA and Zynga executive as its new CEO. So, yeah, working for EA, working for Zynga, that does not make me have a lot of hope in Matthew Bloomberg. Or Bromberg. I'm not sure what he really could do anyways. If anything, I think it's probably better if Unity does just continue to fail and more people continue to move into using Godot. Overall, an open source engine makes a lot of sense. The next step would be to see if you could get the Godot engine to be almost as good, if not better, than Unreal Engine also, so that we could see action first-person shooter style games with hyper-realistic graphics also be developed via open source technology. Skybound has added Wandery and Omaze alums to its executive team, adding more people to their executive team while they also are doing a Kickstarter to try to fund the development of a game screams to me that they are misusing their finances. They really shouldn't have to go to a Kickstarter campaign for an Invincible game and raise $688,302 on top of already having raised $18 million from investments. You really have to question how much of this money was turned around and spent by adding executives to the board. Skybound to me very much feels like a company that just owns the rights to comic book series like The Walking Dead and Invincible, and has yet to really prove that they can be anything else, like anything other than just a holding company, and whether they can actually develop games and run a business properly. I still follow the creator of The Cat Lady, and he was asking people to review his game, which it's probably a great way to promote your game without spending any real advertisement, to just ask people who actually play your game to review it and just be fairly low key about it. It's a little surprising you don't see that in the likes of EA or Unity, not Unity, but EA, Microsoft, Sony. Like, none of those companies ask users to actually review their games on Steam in particular, or review their games anywhere, because inherently they are such in the corporate mentality that they're afraid of actual user feedback being seen by other people, and would rather their games be advertised by advertisement companies and hyped up and over promoted, or dishonestly promoted. LinkedIn, for some insane reason, launched 3 games to play while you're job hunting, which is not video game related, but I did see that the number of jobs added in this most recent, I assume, quarter, it has been considerably fewer than what was expected. Yeah, I think the economy is very much more than ever disconnected from actual employment and the actual experience that a large majority of people in the United States are experiencing. Yes, there are rich people in the stock market that may be doing well, but the average person is struggling more than ever to just have good jobs, maintain good jobs, and one good job even is now becoming a fantasy, having instead the need to take 2 or 3 jobs. But yeah, the real world experience for your average person is getting worse and worse, and yeah, it definitely makes a better argument for some kind of universal basic income, and yet nobody really wants to talk about that or really implement that. I wouldn't suggest LinkedIn. You probably need to have a LinkedIn account, but applying online through websites like Indeed or LinkedIn is a great way to have your resume never even be seen by the actual hiring manager that's looking at it. It is definitely better to try and spend the extra effort, which it is a lot of extra effort, to apply directly via websites. Frankly, even applying online is not recommended. It's better to have a print resume and show up and then be seen by the person, and then if the person says all the applications are done online, then you probably have been rejected immediately just by your appearance at that point. So there might be some tricks there to ask to speak to the hiring manager and not just talk to the secretary or the first person at the first counter you meet. But yeah, the Indeed websites and LinkedIn websites are programmed to reject resumes like crazy if they don't meet every single secret metric that has been clicked or misclicked by the hiring manager. Let's see. Back to video games. Firesprite has laid off the Horizon director Alex Barnes. Barnes worked at Firesprite for 7 years and called his time at Horizon Call the Mountain the honor of a lifetime. Now, they say Horizon director here, but he was the director of Horizon Call the Mountain, the VR version of the game. Yep. And it is kind of interesting to lay off exactly one person, because usually you call that a firing when it's one person that's been laid off. But I guess they're being generous in calling it a layoff. A new Fortnite Star Wars crossover event has been revealed. Epic has announced that, according to Video Games Chronicle. Let's see, Stellar Blade saying thanks to all its fans. I've heard that more things changed than you would expect in the new Game Plus mode. Here, this might be an actual person cosplaying, maybe not, hard to tell. It's definitely different kind of promotion that I'm seeing here on Stellar Blade's Twitter compared to following Sony, which hasn't really promoted Stellar Blade at all. And then the Steam Deck had the most recent games, the games played in May, which the list here doesn't seem like it's changed that much. And now PlayStation players can now join parties via QR code. Right. And so I'm going to pause the recording and take a bit of a break, and then I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. So one of the bits of news that I didn't have an article for, but I should mention, is that Helldivers 2 has announced that all Steam players are going to have to log in via PlayStation accounts to play Helldivers 2 on PC on Steam. And subsequently, and rightfully so, Helldivers 2 is getting reviewed very negatively after this news has come out, and that has caused their reviews and the rating to drop precipitously. Now, I am at this point completely uninterested in using the phrase review bomb, or hearing the phrase review bomb, because it has lost all meaning as people have tried to weaponize it to mean something that it often didn't mean. But I will say this is yet another example of a game that is not being review bombed. It is being reviewed on the announcement of changes to the in-game content. It is not being negatively reviewed for any other reason outside of the game, outside of what the game experience is. So, if Steam used their label of off-topic reviews or off-topic discussion to label something as a review bomb in this case, that would be an example of Steam abusing its power, I would say, and trying to hide the fact that actual gameplay content and experience has changed here. It probably is the case that you could for free get a PlayStation account, but why should you have to at all? Like that just doesn't make any sense at all, that you should be forced to have a PlayStation account to play something on Steam. That being said, Valve has also allowed Ubisoft and EA to have elements like that, I think, also, where there's some kind of multiplayer aspect that requires you to make a free third-party account, although the line has always seemed like it was free. I've never seen a game require an actual pay account without it being advertised. I imagine now would be the time to ask for a refund for Helldivers 2 if you're not willing to get a Steam, a PlayStation account. Speaking of refunds, Sony is also apparently given some refunds for Stellar Blade for false advertising due to the changing in the censorship on that day one patch. On the case of the censorship in the patch on Stellar Blade, had they waited outside of the first 6 weeks, it definitely would have been received a little bit better. Alright, so let's go through all the new games on Steam. Now, very quickly, this is going to let me highlight the JavaScript injector, the injection that I've done here. So you can see now that unless I hover over it, it will scroll in about, well, I think it is exactly 700 milliseconds. Yeah, 800 milliseconds here in this JavaScript code. And this is just the function that they had defined, except for it said 5,000 here. I changed it to 800. I could change it to a different number, and that's all I had to do, is use this extension to inject the function over the existing function, and it just speeds it up. And I'm a little shocked it worked that well. That being said, my macro didn't work that well, so some of these games I definitely have already seen. That being said, this is going to save me a massive amount of clicking now, because what I was doing before was I'd come to a thing and then I would do this and try and see all the screenshots fairly quickly. And now I just have to stay where I am, so I can just put the mouse cursor somewhere around here, use the middle mouse button with a different extension to close tabs for games I'm not going to make YouTube shorts on, and then just watch it blink. Now I will have to say apologies here if this is moving too fast for you, particularly I imagine if you were watching this at a replay speed higher than 1 times. Steam does allow you to slow down the videos if you want to see these screenshots, but overall I think this is a better approach. Anyways, there is still an issue here where I'm trying to find an audience to match what the content I want to create. So at the moment I think there probably is still a fairly high audience amount of people that don't care about looking at the new games on Steam at all. This one supports English and Chinese apparently. Then I'm surprised it even would support English. But yeah, my macro didn't work, so I manually opened all of these tabs. So a lot of these are things we probably already looked at. What I am noticing when I have to go back and open all the tabs myself is that there is a, I guess I'm going to give this a chance. There is very much a case where there aren't a lot of very memorable games that I could use as landmarks to say, this is a game I've seen before versus games I haven't seen before. And I really don't have a way of fixing that issue. These are all games we did see before. I'm recognizing them now, which does tell me then this is one I skipped over before, but I'll stay with it. Yeah. And at this point, card-based games, I think I'm pretty done with them. Particularly if they're just like Chinese card-based games, or look like mobile games. Yeah. Cat caught your tongue. These screenshots are far too dark. I would say Valve is kind of genius in that they have programmed this so that it stops scrolling when you hover over. I could see how that would be incredibly frustrating otherwise, and then it just goes back to scrolling. And yeah, if you compare that to other stores like Amazon.com, the images don't really scroll at all. And notably, I would say I don't think any storefront is particularly great as far as presenting the right information and good information in a quick, easy to digest way. And I would say Valve and Steam have it easy, because at the very least you know they're talking about video games or software only. It gets a lot more difficult if you're selling groceries or tires or just random things, clothing. Yeah. And there is definitely an expectation that web stores should feel and interact somewhat like Amazon.com reacts, because that's just the default place where a lot of people tend to shop, in the same way that most stores look and feel a lot like a Walmart, when they could feel very different. Like, you could walk into a store and it could feel like a cigar bar. There could be sofas and tables, and there could be people that present you with different items. The aisles could be in different orders. There could be not actual aisles in the first place. That would probably not be efficient use of space if you did it that way. But the vast majority of stores are lanes of shelves with usually fairly brightly lit environments, boring environments designed to not distract you from looking at the actual products. And then there's a lot more subtlety to where things are laid out to push you to more expensive items that stores do. Amazon.com is very blatant on when it pushes you to more expensive items by just filling up the first page or the first few search results with ads. I don't think this actually supports English. It says it does. No, I'm gonna have to say no to that. This might be moving a little too fast at 800 milliseconds. Like, maybe I need to bring it up to like 1200. I do have a fear by letting it cycle through here that I'm not looking at the screenshots long enough to give it a fair chance. But I'm not sure. I might bump it up to just another 100 milliseconds. Even if it takes 1 second, if it was just 1,000 milliseconds for 1 second between each screenshot, that's still saving me 4 seconds for every screenshot if I was to sit there and wait for it to cycle. And all that adds up, certainly, when streaming. In fact, that's one of the major things I'd like to improve about my streams, is just to accelerate the experience. And I'm not doing a great job on it, even though I'm only played a couple of this is a different style of animation. I'd almost say yes to it, except for the fact that every single image here looks really, really terrible, except for this one. It's like they spent a lot of effort on that one thing. Oh, by the way, Hades is on the lowest price sale compared to what it was before. So I think it probably would make some sense for me to buy Hades on Steam. Yeah, there is a catch-22 here. On one thing, I can make a YouTube short around this, but it's probably nothing as a game, and it's probably trying to feel like Stellar Blade. It looks like it's a mobile game being ported, so I'm going to say no to it. But with the success of Stellar Blade, there is also an argument to maybe promote more games like this, even though YouTube almost certainly doesn't want me to promote games like this. Oh yeah, and speaking of YouTube Shorts, one of my YouTube Shorts, like all of my YouTube Shorts say the name of the game, so in this case it would be MotoGP 24, probably get rid of the TM, and then it says newer trending game after that. And so the name of the game is right in the title of the short. The short is literally showing the page, so the name should be prominent, I think, in the middle as far as what the name of the game is, if not in the thumbnail. Also, it's almost always in the thumbnail too. And yet I had somebody in Spanish commenting what's the name of the game, and I'm like, I'm not gonna respond to that. No, that was actually one I was gonna make a YouTube short on, wasn't it? And where'd it go? Alright, well, forget it. So yeah, the only thing I could do more is get rid of the newer trending game part of the title. I also probably should double check to see if there's any emojis. I got the recap from YouTube as far as all the views, which I've gotten quite a lot more views this month than before, and the vast majority of views are from the YouTube Shorts. So there's just no getting away from it. It's just been too successful. It works. For people that don't like shorts, apologies, but it really does work for me as far as getting more views and getting subscribers. Seems to have followed that, and more live stream views. Really has not helped in any way at all as far as pre-recorded video views. So something about the algorithm is there. My move going forward is to stop using emojis. So if there are emojis in the new and trending games, they probably need to go away too. There's still problems with getting a lot of YouTube short views though, is that if I'm getting 500 or 1,000 views on a YouTube short, that's still nowhere close to the millions of views they expect you to get on shorts. Do I want to say yes to this? Nah. I'll give it a chance anyways, I'll be generous. So yeah, it's not really doing that good. I guess I still am open to suggestions on something else I could do with YouTube Shorts, but I'm not sure what that really would be. It would have to be super easy. I just don't think there is anything that's easier than the automated process I'm already doing. Inherently, shorts to me feel like a concept that should be done by a secondary employee, in the same way that clips really should be done by a secondary employee. Here we have an already mixed game, so I'm not going to promote it. And here we have a political game, so I'm not going to promote it. Even though there might be an audience there, I think I'm willing to censor myself and say no political. Let's not get into that political realm. I'm still putting a lot of things on the fall list. And I'm noticing I want to be more actively involved, so I have just moved back to clicking forward instead of letting it cycle itself. I think part of that is because there's a delay. There's like a 1 second delay. So what I would suspect is I probably need to spend some more time to remove that 1 second delay. So as soon as you get to the page, it should just start flipping forward. Although that 1 second delay may actually be it reloading the images. Which maybe not. It is worth pointing out though that it's a little disheartening to have all of your views and all of your success for an entire month be the YouTube Shorts instead of having at least one series that's actually being watched. Although at a certain level, with this medium-sized emergency I'm dealing with, that may just be what my channel becomes anyways, is that I may just not have any pre-recorded footage scheduled at all, and that my channel would just be the channel that does YouTube Shorts of new games and live streams. Maybe even the live streaming goes away. Like, I could probably go through all the new games on Steam 3 times a week off screen and not live stream at all, and that would save me a significant amount of time. At that point though, I would assume I would be just like working some kind of job outside the house or something to justify not streaming. Or yeah, that'd be about the only reason why I wouldn't stream. And that really doesn't touch upon the news. And I don't see a way that the YouTube news itself, or the video game news, could ever be broken down into minute segments, even if people might appreciate it that way. That seems like that would be too limiting. I think this is going to be a no. Visual's not quite good enough there. Yeah. I probably, if I just read the headlines and said nothing else, could at that point make YouTube Shorts around the video game news, but you're really not reporting the news at that point. And even when I'm doing the headlines, I'm not really reporting the news. This is an interesting collection of animations and poses in this visual novel. But yeah. A lot of headlines also just aren't. There isn't much more to say. It definitely feels like a lot more games are finally coming out now. A lot of these I'm noticing are already on the fall list, and definitely are getting second YouTube Shorts. Way too many Survivors clones these days. Still a lot of puzzle games. The adult games that should be in the adult sections show up on occasion 2 out of every 3 days of a week. It feels like 2 out of every 3 streams I do each week. Still a lot of hidden object games. We're starting to see a little too many of these player versus player low effort games. I definitely am starting to feel, about 11 hours into playing Fallout New Vegas, I'm starting to feel that I probably am not going to just immediately jump to playing something like Metro after it, or Fallout 4. I think I'll probably try to play something slightly different in between there, and may even have a fairly long break between the two. There definitely is an excuse to be made, a good excuse to not play Fallout 4, as they're still probably updating it and patching it. You still get the occasional tower defense garbage game. Yeah. But nothing big. No real big announcements and no big releases on this Friday. Still getting some prologues, although it does seem like prologues are dying out. Here's a twist on checkers, I guess. Not something I think that people really would want to play, though. Lego announced a more realistic chessboard set for $80. They've had chessboard sets before. There was a very old one I did that was Pirates versus Colonialists, or Empire, from the British Empire. And then there was one that was more of a abstract art depiction of a chess set pieces. And this newest one, the pieces really do look like they are just chess pieces, although you can still pretty well tell that they are Lego pieces. So I haven't done a Lego set in a long time, and I have a lot of Lego sets I haven't done, but I may still decide to buy that set when it goes on sale and isn't at risk of going out of publication. It probably will be around for a little bit longer than your average Lego set anyways. I'm in a unique advantage that I also gave away the Lego chess sets. I think I did. So, building a third Lego chess set wouldn't mean that I had a whole bunch of them. Alright, so that was all the games. This is what I'm doing with uBlock Origin. So, all the images on the followed page, this one page of the Steam store, are being blocked. Which probably only saves on RAM after the fact, because the images load in, then they're blocked. It's not like they're being blocked as they try to load in, which would be the more efficient way to do that. And the reason for that is that that just is going to make scrolling down all through this long list of follow games a lot quicker. But when I was working on the macro, it was supposed to have actually opened some games for me to look at, and I don't think it actually did. Or if it did, it closed the tabs because my programming was wrong after the fact. Puppet Master the game. Wow, it's getting reviewed very positively, but it is online PvP only, so yeah, that's always a problem. There's always the horror games want players versus players, and I kind of question when you start to think about it whether the audience of horror movie fans really have large groups of friends that also play video games. If anything, I think single player is definitely the way to go for horror games. Anyways, so we've got our chart, and I imagine not too much will have changed here. The all-time peak of Helldivers 2, we will start to see if that number goes down. The requirement for the PlayStation account is not implemented yet, but the negative reviews are already pouring in. So by this time Monday, I would expect Helldivers 2 to drop down to the 16th or 17th spot at least. Manor Lords is about the only new game to mention at the moment. There's not anything else. Governor of Poker 3 still doing fairly well. I guess that does highlight that one poker game on Steam can succeed, and if they made one that didn't involve microtransactions, perhaps that would succeed even better. There's definitely a danger with Roblox trying to partner with Walmart to buy purchases of real world things. There's definitely a danger that somebody's going to make a poker game where you buy credits for the poker game and then you can trade those credits for real world items, and so you would be effectively gambling. I heard someone online saying that through like Facebook Marketplace and more local things you can find used Steam Decks for like $200. I think that would probably severely vary based on where you live, as far as how successful that really would be. It is an interesting idea, certainly, though, to spend $200 on a Steam Deck, although it would probably be a rough Steam Deck. I did actually manage to use my Steam Deck for a couple hours just testing a couple games yesterday, but I am also very much feeling like I'm just not finding enough time to play games there and get it done. I'm just not, in the same way I'm not finding times at home to record Fallout New Vegas, I'm also not finding time to be away from my computer to play a Steam Deck. It is still kind of awkward playing it in public as an adult. Not that awkward, but it is a little. And dangerous, certainly. It's an expensive device. So we can see Apex Legends is down, we can see Naraka Blade Point is down, and we can see just an overall trend downward. And let's see, which one would be Helldivers? Helldivers is here, and it's been trending downward as far as the number of overall players for a while. Let's see, Steam's front page has a EA publisher sale of up to 85% off, which there's probably some games here you might consider. Hades here is the one I want to look at as far as being on sale. There still really is no indication that a there it is, $88.49. And Star Wars, we should also look at that and see what Star Wars games don't have on sale. I haven't already purchased, but yeah, Star Wars Lego for $17.49. I'm not sure if the Skywalker Saga Galactic Edition is the best edition though. And then Raft at $10 is purchasable. Several games here. Less reason these days to buy Dead Space since Dead Space 2 is unlikely to come out. Nier Automata is still $16, and good games, definitely not going on it. I wonder if Stray Blade is on sale just to be confused with Stellar Blade. One of the things that's irritating me about the Steam Deck, and I almost wonder if I should have sent it back, is that it's still, that button, X button, is still sticking quite a bit. I think I may very well need to actually use some sandpaper and try and file it down, because that stickiness while I was testing out Lego game was very noticeable and very much unacceptable. Although if I'm not really using it, I'm not going to wear it down either, so it's kind of no surprise that it's still sticking. So here's Helldivers. It is now at 62%, whereas overall it would have been 79% after the announcement that it's going to incorporate third-party PlayStation Network requirements. Which, is Helldivers even published by PlayStation? Yes, it is. So PlayStation is just being shady all over the place. So everything here screams that, interesting, a health warning, that the interim CEO of Sony is very much not doing anything nice. Here we have, I'm not linking my account to PSN. Hackers accessed personal data in 2011 of 70 million. In May, it was hacked again. In June, it was hacked again. In November 2014, it was hacked again. In 2017, it was hacked again. In 2023, it was hacked twice. Or hacked once in September. Yeah, so very good argument here. Yep. And let's see. If we look at the graph, right now there seems to be no asterisks, and that we can see massive amount of negativity where you had absolutely none, really. You had a little bit when they nerfed the guns around these times, and then you have absolute negativity. And so in like one fell swoop, it feels like Sony, the publisher, has killed all enthusiasm for Helldivers 2. That is quite the blunder, and maybe it may be what Sony really wanted to do anyways, in that they were perhaps peeved that there were way more people playing Helldivers 2 on PC than PlayStation. Yeah. But you take like the Stellar Blade censorship issue from a couple weeks ago, you take Helldivers on PC requiring a PlayStation account this week. You think about everything else PlayStation has done in the past few months. Is very little reason why you would want to buy a PlayStation 5 Pro or support PlayStation in any way whatsoever. This is a great example where Microsoft and Nintendo can just skate by doing nothing wrong, and they will look like the good guys for a while. Let's see. And then Raft. Its lowest price has always been $9.99. So there is definitely an argument to just not even waiting for a summer sale and buying some of these games. Because it does kind of feel like they may just not have one. Let's see. Star Wars Skywalker Saga. If we look at this like this, then there is a deluxe edition and there's a galactic edition. And it seems to me like the galactic edition is the most expensive one, so that's probably everything. Although I'm not sure it includes the Mandalorian Season 1 pack. So you may still be asked to buy some of these DLC characters on top of that. And that's the one thing that the LEGO games have gotten worse and worse about, is that $2 for this character pack, $2 for this character pack, it all adds up. You're paying another $40 onto a LEGO game that right now is super cheap. The base game has been as low as $10, but yeah, now would be the time to buy it. Also, there is also a question, certainly as far as TT games. They really haven't announced any new LEGO games in a while, so I'm not sure they're actually working on a new LEGO game, or if they're just going out of business because AT&T acquired them. As far as other Star Wars things, you have this and DLC and things. A lot of this I already own. This is the old Star Wars game. This is the new Star Wars game. And then there's several other Star Wars games. There's a bundle that would give you pretty much everything Star Wars, probably not the pinball, which is mostly negative anyways. So I do own a significant amount of Star Wars, more Star Wars games than I actually would ever want to play. There is a question too, certainly, as far as just how many of these games would be compatible on Steam Deck, because that is something I would keep an eye out for. So if I was to go back to like this game, you have to go to the base game, I imagine, and then you have to scroll down here, and Steam Deck is verified as far as Steam Deck compatibility. Then Hades, cheapest ever. So yeah, now would be the time to spend some money, if I had some money to spend, some extra budget to spend. But buying the Steam Deck OLED, buying this for $600 certainly makes even spending another $9 a difficult decision for a while. Alright, let's do the headlines. I have another hard out today, so if I don't go through the headlines fairly quickly, I'm gonna have to rush. So video games, Video Game Chronicles headlines. I don't think we changed anything as far as the macro on these headlines, so this should be the same as it was before. Paladin Studios has shut down after almost 20 years. The company closure has resulted in 45 job losses. This is a company I've never heard of though, so I don't know what they made. Nintendo published Switch eShop game Good Job, and mobile Cut the Rope Remastered Amazing Katamari Damacy and My Tamagotchi Forever. Actually, we talked about this being shut down, and even like 2 hours ago, and I've already forgotten Paladin Studios' name. Yep. So that's definitely an example of a company where you have to make your own personal decision as to, is that really a big loss to the video game community? Were they even really a major player in the video game community, or were they simply a mobile game developer of no real importance? Not even that many people were still at the company if you're laying off less than 50. Xbox and Switch players get free Star Wars game trials. From Software rules out more Elden Ring DLC, but leaves the door open for a sequel. Nintendo World Championships NES Edition for Switch has been rated by the ESRB. Next week's free Epic Games Store title has been announced. Circus Electric is going to replace Cat Quest 2 and Orcs Must Die 3. Helldivers 2 will still require all Steam players to sign in with a PlayStation Network account. The requirement apparently was always planned, but apparently people didn't know it because it was removed at launch due to technical issues. What that proves, though, is that either crossplay was not working on Steam with PlayStation players, or crossplay was working without somebody being required to log into the PlayStation Network account. One of those two things has to be true. And either way, Helldivers players on Steam were happy with the situation. I don't think PC players really even want console players playing with them a lot of times. Resident Evil 9 could be released in January, it's been claimed. Limited Run apologizes for selling CDRs as authentic 3DO games. Some players claim its reprint of D doesn't work on their console. Interesting. Yeah, there's a real problem with burning CD writables and getting good quality ones that will work 100% of the time. And for limited run games, they are too big of a company to be using CDRs. Anyways, they should be doing short runs of pressed CDs. Although I'm not sure there are that many factories left that are doing pressed CDs. I don't even know what the game D is about, but I think I may have seen it in the past. It looks familiar. Kind of looks like what an anime DVD cover would be, just the letter D cryptically, some kind of horror anime from the 80s. Yeah, press discs differ from CDRs in that the manufacturing process involves making glass master discs and then using it to create an exact replica of the original disc. CDRs are less accurate and can result in disc read issues with certain lasers. Yeah. The vast majority of private division staff was reportedly laid off by Take-Two. Knuckles had the most viewed opening weekend of any Paramount Plus original series to date. Nintendo takes down more than 8,500 clones of the Switch emulator Yuzu with a single DMCA notice. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the next DLC table coming to the mature-rated Pinball M. Ubisoft free-to-play first-person shooter X Defiant finally gets a release date. It's going to go live later this month. Skate the Boardroom Episode 5 details character customization on VideoGamesChronicle.com. Streamlabs has released a plugin for OBS, meaning streamers no longer need to choose between the two software. Less than half of developers say their studios has a credits policy, a new survey finds. May's, quote, free games with Amazon Prime Gaming have been revealed. What are the games? Tomb Raider Game of the Year Edition, Lego Star Wars 3 The Clone Wars, Dark City International Intrigue. This is some kind of mobile game. Fallout 3 Game of the Year Edition, for good old games. None of these games are Steam codes anymore. It really has made the free games with Amazon Prime fairly useless. Like Electrician Simulator at the Epic Game Store. And yeah. I guess maybe if some of these were giving you mobile games for free through an Amazon Games app, there might be some value, but I don't think that's even the case. I think The Forgotten City is not a mobile game. Yeah. And certainly it probably would have made more sense for just Fallout 3 to be given away for free to, well, to everybody would be a smarter move. Instead of just giving it away to people who already have Amazon Prime. Professor Layton's studio CEO says he wants to make erotic and 18+ violent games. Pokemon Lazy Summer merch collection designed by a veteran artist has been announced. Helldivers 2 Polar Patriots War Bond arrives next week. I wonder if the player base is even going to be around by next week. THQ Nordic's 4th annual digital showcase is coming in August. A video offers the first good look at the Super Nintendo world at Universal Epic Universe. Call of Duty 2024 could be revealed in Warzone this month, a data miner is suggesting. Tetris is partnering with 7-Eleven to release a handheld. Ninja Theory sharing something from Hellblade 2 every day in the run-up to its release. So they're going to really try and promote and hype Hellblade 2, which is probably a good move. I still suspect that Hellblade 2 is only going to be slightly better than Hellblade 1, and I found Hellblade 1 lacking in gameplay content. Maximilian Dude commissions a cel-shaded mod for Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. The game's original visual style was met with criticism on release. So, a content creator named Maximilian Dude, I've never heard of him, apparently has put out an open commission or paid somebody to make a reskin mod of the game to make it look like more like what the old Marvel vs. Capcom games would have looked like. Now the weirdest part about here, I guess it's still in the process of being developed. The weirdest part about this, though, I would say, is I didn't even know Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite existed. I probably have talked about it and then just immediately forgotten about it. And even here, I'd say the cel shading mod still does not look as good as you would want it to look. Perhaps the black lines are a little too thick, perhaps the backgrounds just don't really match that style well enough, perhaps there are lighting effects and shading effects that just should not be there for a cel shaded art style. Those would be my first impression guesses as to why it doesn't quite look right. Sony is pulling Horizon Zero Dawn from the PlayStation Plus game catalog. It's been claimed that the game is working on a PS5 remaster of the game. Unity has appointed the former EA and Zynga executive as its new CEO. Matthew Bromberg will take on the role later this month. Take-Two reportedly is closing Private Division Studios Roll7 and Intercept Games. The long-delayed Star Wars Hunters hits Switch and mobile in June. New Fortnite Star Wars crossover event has been revealed. Modern Warfare 3 Dev Error 5433 is being investigated after Season 3 Reload launches. Starfield's next update includes a 60 frames per second mode for the Xbox Series X, detailed surface maps, and more. Yep. As far as I know and understand it, Starfield is still an incredibly boring game in that you will go to a planet and there will be very little to do on that planet. Maybe one quest alone. It's really missing out on the open world experience you'd have in a Fallout game. And even that open world experience in Fallout games is still an old way of thinking, considering how empty some of the open world sections can be. But yeah, Starfield does kind of feel like it's a step backwards, not a step forwards, in the way of designing environments and interactive gameplay. May's PlayStation Plus Essential games include EA Sports Football Club 24, Kerbal Space Program 2's studio future is unclear as Take-Two makes layoffs. The update here is Take-Two is reportedly closing private division studios Intercept Games and Roll7, but they have said that Kerbal Space Program 2 is still okay and safe and in development. PlayStation players can now join parties via QR code, which I would have to assume that you're scanning the QR code to a browser or to an app on your phone. I'm not sure if that really makes anything easier, because how do you get that QR code to people? That would be the question. It would make some sense if you were having people play on their phones and then one person playing on the PlayStation connected to a TV. It makes less sense if you're starting a party, then you have to take a picture of the QR code, send that picture over to somebody else via text message or something, then they have to figure out how to scan the QR code from that picture of the QR code to then join. Just doesn't make any sense. Unless it was more of a situation that you had an app on your phone, you scanned the QR code, and then that would just temporarily log in you as the second or third or fourth player's PlayStation account and profile. That might work. Inherently, that's where QR codes always have to be used wisely, otherwise it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to be included at all. Helldivers 2 already ranks 7th in lifetime US dollar sellers for Sony published games, while Dragon's Dogma 2 sales surpassed those of the original in its first month of availability. So yeah, Helldivers 2 doing really, really well, and then they introduce or reintroduce the PlayStation Plus PSN network requirement on Steam, and they're losing all of that goodwill. They also nerfed some guns, which lost them some goodwill too. Batman Arkham Shadow has been announced for VR ahead of its late 2024 release. And then a Fallout 200-pound Fallout TV show backpack is now available for pre-order. I do not recommend anybody actually buying it. Okay, so then that's going to bring me to the Gamatsu articles. Fairly quickly. Realm of Ink launches in early access for PC on May 17th. This is where these tabs were supposed to be opened by my macro, and I don't think they were. If they did, they got opened in the same mess with all the other new games on Steam, which maybe that is what happened. That's very possibly what happened. I'll have to watch my macro next time I run it on Monday. ESRB rates Nintendo World Championships NES Edition for Switch. X-Defiant launches May 21st. This one I don't think is coming to Steam. Nope, Ubisoft Connect. The Forever Winter gameplay reveal trailer is available on Gamatsu. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night version 1.5 update launches May 9th for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC, and then May 16th for the Switch. This is the, I think, 2D. No, this is, I think, the main Bloodstained game. I guess that would give me an excuse to not play Bloodstained for a while. Or final update adds chaos mode and versus mode. Alright, so that after this update happens, there's no reason to wait any further to play Bloodstained. I don't even know if I own Bloodstained though. So more and more it is getting to that point. I'm just so far behind that I might as well just wait till the game stops updating itself before I start playing it. Arcade GK Rakugaki launches May 22nd for PC. Don't really have much to say there. THQ Nordic Digital Showcase 2024 set for August 2nd. Cozy Caravan launches in early access on May 16th. And this is exactly what I'm trying to avoid, is clicking on the Steam link and then going back and forth between tabs. DNF Duel DLC character Nin Master has been announced. A lot of these articles might be fairly old, because this is like May 1st and I think we've already covered it. So we may just go through these fairly quickly. Powerful Pro Baseball 2024-2025 opening movie is available on Gematsu. Umber Claw story trailer is available on Gematsu. Bloomberg Take-Two Interactive Software to shut down Roll7 and Intercept Games. PlayStation Plus monthly games lineup for May 2024 have been announced. A romance visual novel, Jewelry Hearts Academia, We Will Wing Wonder World, is coming to the PS4 and Switch on October 24th in Japan. Not coming to PC, not coming to the West, from the looks of it at the moment. Batman Arkham Shadow has been announced for the Quest 3. Hypercharge Unboxed for Xbox One and Series launches May 31st. Earth Defense Force 6 launches July 25th in the West. Star Wars Hunters launches June 4th. Yeah, a lot of these articles are going to be old. Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance and the Ideal World trailer is available on Gematsu. Ginso Menage is coming to the West for Switch and PC. The Land Beneath Us launches May 13th. Open World RPG Dread Delusion for PC launches May 14th. Funko Fusion launches September 13th for the PS4 and 5, the Xbox Series, and Switch and PC. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero Master and Apprentice trailer and screenshots are available on Gematsu. The Xbox Game Showcase 2024 followed by a ... direct set for June 9th. Kyokin Interactive lays off its entire staff. Xbox Game Pass adds Tomb Raider Definitive Edition, Kona 2 Brume, Little Kitty Big City, and more in early May. The cozy exploration game Into the Emberlands has been announced for PC. Pine Hearts adds a Switch version and launches May 23rd. Square Enix to record extraordinary losses of 22.1 billion yen in content abandonment losses following revised development approach. Shiren the Wanderer, the Mystery Dungeon of Serpent Coil Island's first major content update is now available. A sci-fi 2.5D adventure RPG Beyond Galaxyland has been announced for all consoles and PC. Humanity is coming to the Xbox One and Series on May 30th. Vampire Survivors version 0.1.10 Laboratory update is now available. Dungeons of Hindenburg launches July 18th. Gamera Games announces new titles are coming to the Xbox and PC Game Pass. Kaizen Gameworks announces an open-world mascot management crime drama called Promise Mascot Agency for all consoles and PC. Hangry adds an Xbox One and Series version. Tales of Iron 2 Whiskers of Winter gameplay reveal trailer is available on Gematsu. Q Games announces a co-op puzzle game All You Need Is Help for the PS5, Xbox One and Series, Switch and PC. Farah the Sundered Tribes adds a PS5 and Xbox Series versions. Sulfur adds Xbox One and Series versions. And Time and Galaxy launches in June. So that was a lot of old stories. Hopefully my macro was catching up there. But yeah, we went through a lot. And I'm running out of time quickly here, but we do have all the GameDeveloper.com articles actually open. And it probably is going to be a lot catch up on those too. So we'll do those headlines, then we'll be done for today. Early access shooter Gray Zone Warfare delivers 400,000 sales in 2 days. Well, this might be an up-and-coming game. Haven't heard of it before. IGDA Developer Satisfaction Survey highlights DEI deficiencies and crediting confusion. Local Thunk knew Bolotro needed to draw players in with poker. Well, pretty obviously they knew that. That's why they added it to their game. Pokemon Go co-dev Very Spaceship lays off its staff. Paladin Studios laying off 45 workers and shutting down. The former Zynga COO Matthew Bloomberg is the new CEO of Unity. I will say at least he has a fairly professional headshot, although I'm not sure why GameDeveloper.com has started to just crop out the backgrounds, because this is a really visually disturbing background pattern they have here. If they were going to do that, it should just be a pure white background, not whatever this nonsense is. There's a report that Take-Two is shutting down Ollie Ollie World developer Roll 7. Clockmaker developer Belka Games cuts 20% of the staff. Skybound adds Wandery and Omaze alums to its executive team. LinkedIn launched 3 games to play while job hunting. Firespite has laid off the Horizon director Alex Barnes. There's an update that Take-Two confirms Kerbal Space Program 2 is safe despite Seattle layoffs. Game workers in Quebec are making a huge unionization push. So Game Workers Unite Montreal have joined forces with Canadian trade union CSN to help workers establish unions at major studios in the region. I imagine we'll see that happen. And I imagine a lot of these layoffs have led to more unionization push, and I imagine a lot of these layoffs may have been in efforts to prevent unionization. Clearly the game industries, as a creative artistic industry in particular, needed to be unionized decades ago. Resolution appoints Johan Gastrin as CTO to expand into spatial computing. That's VR and AR. Another Crab's Treasure ends up with an opening weekend of 100,000 units sold. And then Rise of the Ronin is already outselling the Neo series, says Koei Tecmo. Alright, so that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and keep on watching. Thanks.